So all U.S. and NATO troops will leave Afghanistan by September the 11th. U.S. President Joe Biden says the withdrawal will start on the 1st of May. This is in line with the agreement reached between the Trump administration and the Taliban. The deadline coincides with the 20th anniversary of those attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. It signals an end to America's longest war. Let's talk about this with international relations expert Professor John Stremlau joining us from Johannesburg. Good morning to you, John. So, an end finally to America's longest war, 20 years. What have they achieved?
Well, according to Joe Biden, they've achieved their main objective, which was to eliminate a pad for launching terrorist attacks like happened on 9/11. But this is, as you point out, the longest war in U.S. history. $2 trillion were expended. And it had multiple objectives along the way: nation building, abuse of women, reduce the abuse of women, deal with the drug trafficking issues, and stabilize the Afghanistan country, which, of course, the Russians and others have tried to do over the years unsuccessfully. So there's a lot of controversy over this decision, but Joe Biden seems resolute in pulling out. And we wish him well, because I think it has been a long struggle, and it's time to move on. But the consequences of this decision remain to be seen.
And I know it certainly was a war that wasn't popular at home in the U.S. I should imagine he'll get quite a lot of support there. Where does this leave the Taliban? We know that they have a desire for international legitimacy, but they've now said that they won't attend a summit on Afghanistan's future until the troops have left. They're leaving a little later than promised to the Taliban.
That's true. They were supposed to leave on May 1, but it's also true that the intelligence reports that the Taliban was not abiding by the agreement with the Trump administration in any case. You have to verify, and the possibility of doing so is complicated now by the pullout, but nevertheless, there will be other stakeholders in the region, China and Russia and others, and so consequently the diplomacy that Joe Biden is pushing will have to be very vigorous and very careful, because they are going to try to create an environment which would increase the incentives for the Taliban to play sort of within the rough rules of the game. But the record on this is very, very mixed. And so it's going to be problematic, but I think at a time when Joe Biden has very real ambitions globally and also nationally to sort of rekindle the spirit of democracy in a world that's going increasingly illiberal and autocratic, he just didn't want to have this thing on his plate any longer, and I frankly can't blame him.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about his foreign policy. You touched on Russia. The U.S. is now threatening sanctions against Russia over their cyber interference in the country. What does this say about Biden's foreign policy, and how many countries is he preparing to tackle?
Well, he's tackling a process, and he's tackling a concept which is very, very tricky, and it's one that South Africa should watch very closely, because we in Africa face autocratic pressures. Autocracy is in the natural human condition, it seems. America's had a tradition of autocratic behavior on the part of southern states against slaves, African slaves, for years. That was compromised within the U.S. political system, and Joe Biden was promoting democracy. And what does that mean? And what does it mean for South Africa to be promoting democracy? At the same time, on the question of Russia, he's going to have a summit with Vladimir Putin in the third country. With regard to China, which is the real focus of his concerns, autocratic, technocratic autocracy that has been very productive economically, he wants to engage. And he wants to talk about whether you can have cooperative relations despite the fact that you're very clear about what your principles are. Well, that's a South African approach to international relations, frankly, and I'm encouraged that Biden is trying to do this, but it's very, very difficult, and it remains to be seen whether he'll have the domestic support to enable him to do it.
Always good to talk to you, John. Thank you.